minutes? Okay. I think we have most people in already, so you can start. You can So this panel is on another mechanism, which is an international one, a UN mechanism. And this is the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And this is just to highlight that there's another possibility to raise awareness of violations of women's rights in childbirth and to find accountability, basically.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karolina Więckiewicz. I come from Poland, and I thank you to the organizers. I thank you for inviting me here and giving me the pleasure and the honor to moderate the last panel. I was also asked to share my personal story, which I think is fair to start with a statement that I have never given birth. And moreover, I should also come out to you with some other fact. 3 years ago, I was one of these women who claimed that if I ever get pregnant, I will have a cesarean section on demand, planned in advance. Yeah, I know. And even I was, unconscious enough to share that information with people who are surrounding me, because I work for an organization that deals with women's reproductive rights. So I have doctors, very good ones around me, and I share that information with them with no shame whatsoever. And I remember one of them saying, "You know how much I admire and respect you, and I just cannot listen to such ridiculous thing coming out of your mouth." And I was like, what? And I didn't really see at the moment the inconsistency between the work that I do and the statement that I make with no shame. But because I'm this kind of person who listens to people who are smarter than me, I started thinking that, okay, maybe that's not the best way to go. And I was already at this point that I will reconsider this after having this conversation with this doctor. But what really changed me was the hug, because in May 2012, I went to the first Human Rights in Childbirth conference, and oh my, it was amazing, and it changed me in as many ways as you can imagine. Firstly, as a human rights lawyer, because to be honest with you, the majority of cases that I deal with in my work are connected with all kinds of complications around pregnancy, the right to information, denial of all rights, information, and respect for women, but in cases of complications. And I realized that sometimes everything goes just right, and you just have to leave that woman alone and let her do what she is fully capable of doing by herself without forcing her to do anything else. And I realized, I met my first doula there. She was Dutch, and she was the most amazing person. And I told her, okay, you have to come to Poland to be there with me when I give birth. After I came back, I met Polish doulas, but I still remember that first one and still really keep her in my heart, because that was such an amazing thing for me to meet her. And I realized that doulas have just this something about them that make them so special. And I realized that, it's not about not feeling any pain throughout birth. I realized that it's just what you can do about that pain. I started calling it the management of pain. So because it can bring you down and it can totally tear you apart, but it can also make you feel the most powerful person in the world, and I decided that I want this. After I heard all the stories of amazing women who gave birth that way and who were sharing these stories in The Hague with me, and now I talk to women about that. And sometimes even my friends who have this experience of hospital birth, that you can do it in a totally different way. And what I wanted to say is that the community and all the people that work on the advancement of human rights in childbirth, especially this movement to promote birth at home, you really do bring about change, and I think I am just one of the examples of that, and thank you for that. Now we start the last panel, and I'm just thinking that, we can do everything, so why should we limit ourselves to the domestic level, to the Council of Europe level? Let's go all the way to the UN, because we can. As you know, we have all kinds of mechanisms at the United Nations level. Some of them are stronger, some of them are weaker, some of them can take us to another level, some of them have failed us when we were trying to fight for help from them. But I still am among these people who think that the UN has to be used in order to hold our governments accountable for their obligations and to advance women's rights and to supplement other efforts that we do for that advancement. And the organizers, as I understood, chose CEDAW as one of these mechanisms that we should look closer to. The wonderful lawyers that I'm sitting here with will do that in their speeches. As it was told, sometimes CEDAW is a better option in terms of individual communications than other institutions, and it has to be considered in our strategies for litigation and advocacy activities, because it's just sometimes more relevant and more powerful than others, and that's why it will be talked about here today. And I have 3 lawyers with me who will speak in a while, and the first of them is Ria Hoktar, who is the Regional Director for Europe at Center for Reproductive Rights, and for a very long time a lawyer at the International Commission of Jurists, and I'll give the floor to you now.
Thanks, Carolina, and thank you to Elena and Daniela for having the Centre for Reproductive Rights here with you all during the past 2 days. It's been a real pleasure. Okay, so I have to talk very fast because I have very limited amount of time and I have a lot to say. I've been asked to talk a little bit about and give an overview of the CEDAW Convention and how it guarantees women's human rights in childbirth, and how we as advocates can use it and use the committee, the CEDAW committee's periodic review mechanism, as an avenue towards accountability for violations of these rights. And I do want to say that there are other ways in which you can engage with the CEDAW Convention and the CEDAW committee, and the periodic review mechanism is just one. And it's not litigation, it's not involving individual complaints, but I think it's a very good place to start. And maybe, in fact, it's a place that we need to start to lay the ground then for the litigation and the individual complaints and the sharp end of the stick in terms of accountability. Okay, so in order to go through what is the CEDAW committee, I'll start with the basics. What is the CEDAW committee? What is the convention? What provisions in it are relevant to us? And how can we engage with this periodic review mechanism? And then I will just give a very brief overview of how the committee has thus far engaged with violations of women's rights in childbirth. And then thirdly, I'll turn back to some of the very practical and strategic steps that we as advocates need to be taking in order to enable this mechanism really become a positive and viable tool towards accountability for violations of women's rights in childbirth. I do want to acknowledge the diversity of experience in this room, and some of us know very little about the UN human rights system. Some of us know a lot. And I do ask those who have this experience to bear with me. Some of what I say is going to be very elementary and maybe boring for you. So thanks in advance for your patience. Okay, so most of us probably know that the CEDAW Convention is the convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. It is one of what we call the 9 core UN human rights treaties. It has 188 states parties, which means that 188 governments are obliged to respect, protect, and fulfill women's rights to enjoy all their human rights fully and on a basis of equality and freedom from discrimination. Article 1 of the treaty defines discrimination, and it basically says that the treaty applies to all treatment of women that undermines their equal enjoyment of their civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights. Article 2 of the treaty lays out a list of things that states have to do to actually end this kind of discrimination. And then other articles of the treaty get specific, and they talk about some particular steps that states must take in specific fields in relation to specific human rights of women. And in this regard, I think there are 2 articles that I just want to highlight very briefly that are particularly relevant to some of the issues we've been talking about yesterday and today. The first is Article 5, which basically says that states have to take steps to abolish wrongful gender stereotypes and stereotyped roles for women and men in their societies. And secondly, and probably most importantly, Article 12, which addresses the treatment of women in healthcare. And this article says states must eliminate discrimination against women in healthcare and ensure their equal access to healthcare services. And it also says states must ensure women's access to appropriate services in connection with pregnancy, confinement, and postnatal period. Now, although when we read this convention, we find this explicit mention, for example, of the right to health, there are other rights that are very relevant to issues of women's rights in childbirth that we don't find any mention of. So we don't find in the CEDAW Convention the right to privacy and bodily integrity, or the right to freedom from torture and ill treatment. And yet I do really want to underline that just because these things aren't mentioned explicitly in the terms of the treaty doesn't mean they're not covered. And in fact, they are. They are encompassed within the framework of the Convention by the 2 general provisions, Article 1 and 2, which define discrimination and say what states have to do to stop it. So basically, Article 1, 2, 5 and 12 of the CEDAW Convention taken together, I think, give us a very good basis in which to be engaging with the committee around women's rights in childbirth violations. Okay, so what is the CEDAW Committee? How can we as NGOs and human rights advocates engage with it? So basically the committee is a group of independent experts elected by governments and established under the terms of the convention to monitor its implementation. There are 23 members of the committee, and the treaty outlines different ways in which the committee will fulfill its monitoring mandate. And the periodic review mechanism is probably the central and in some ways maybe most important aspect of those functions. So basically, once a state has ratified CEDAW, it is obliged to submit a periodic report every 4 years to the CEDAW Committee, and it must outline the measures that it has taken to give effect to the convention. Once the state periodic report is sent in by the state, and it's often sent in late, the committee will look at it and issue a list of issues, which is basically a series of questions for the state. And it conveys this list to the government and it publishes it on its website. And then a few months later, during one of its annual 3 sessions in Geneva, it engages in a dialogue with the state, with a delegation from the state, over approximately 2 days. And once the dialogue is over, it issues what we call concluding observations, which are basically its lists of concerns. How is the state falling short, and what does the committee recommend it must do to address these failures? And NGOs and advocates can participate in this process in different ways. By submitting shadow reports to the committee, raising concerns about violations, and we can submit shadow reports both at the list of issues phase and ahead of the periodic review and the dialogue itself, and also by attending the committee session and participating in formal and informal briefings with the committee. And I'll come back to this. How do we engage, and what are some of the practical and strategic considerations that we should keep in mind in a minute or two? I just want to give a brief overview before I jump into that of what extent the extent to which, up until now, the committee's concluding observations have actually dealt with issues of women's rights in childbirth. And I think this is where we as advocates, and particularly the advocates in this room, will find their challenge. Basically, I would say that the concluding observations of the CEDAW Committee and other UN human rights treaties up until now have issued, thus far, that the concluding observations they've issued can be divided into 3 categories. And the first category, and these are really the most common, are very much concerned with the obligation of the state to reduce rates of maternal mortality and morbidity. And primarily these observations have been issued to states in the global south with relatively very high rates of maternal mortality. And this category of concluding observations are framed in a very general way often. They don't get specific. Maybe the committee will just say something like the state must take measures to prioritise the reduction of maternal mortality. But sometimes they do get more specific. So for example, just one example of the committee's concluding observations to Laos in 2009. And the committee said that Laos should prioritise reducing maternal and infant mortality rates by developing the midwifery workforce and making the services of skilled birth attendants available and accessible, including emergency obstetric delivery services, and by granting free services where necessary. So that's an example of the first category, very much preoccupied with maternal death and disability. The second category are also concerned with maternal death and disability, but are focused on particular groups of women that face discrimination in maternity and childbirth contexts. So, for example, in 2010, CEDAW told the Netherlands that it must take immediate measures to reduce the maternal mortality of asylum seekers and undocumented women. In 2009, it told the UK that it should take concrete measures to address high mortality rates among traveller communities, travelling women. And that's the second category, so very much focused on discrimination against particular groups of women. And the third category, which is even more specific again, and we see some examples of these concluding observations against, for example, Czech Republic, Hungary, Slovakia, are focused on one particular rights violation that women have faced, and particularly Romani women have faced in childbirth, and that is forced sterilisation. So these are the 3 categories that represent, I think, the vast majority of ways in which the committee has thus far engaged with women's rights and childbirth issues. And it will tell you, as it told me, I think, that essentially there are very few examples of the committee or the other treaty bodies engaging with the kinds of abuses of women's rights that we've been talking about over the past 2 days. And in fact, I've only really been able to identify 3 examples, and the first 2 my colleagues will talk more about in detail, so I'll leave those. But the third example comes not from CEDAW, it comes from the Human Rights Committee, which last year, in its concluding observations on Ireland, expressed extremely grave concerns regarding the Irish state's failure to ensure accountability, redress and justice in relation to the practice of symphysiotomy that had been performed in hospitals in Ireland, I think, up until the 1980s, without the women's free and informed consent. But I think it's this realization that we're really dealing with like examples that we can count on, less than one hand, and that the treaty bodies have thus far not really engaged with the kinds of women's rights concerns that we are preoccupied with here. And I think this proffers a challenge to us as advocates. It also is an opportunity. And it's this sense of challenge and opportunity that brings me to the last issue I want to talk about, which is, okay, how do we practically and strategically get these issues? How do we make this review process relevant to these issues? How do we get the issues onto the committee's agenda? And I think the first thing to underline is that the onus is really on us as advocates, and the bottom line is that this committee will not deal with issues. It doesn't deal with violations or concerns unless they are brought to its attention by civil society, and this is the case in 95% of the issues it deals with. So how do we get it onto the committee's agenda? Well, the first step is that we need to be raising the issues in shadow reports and shadow submissions to the committee. You have a few different options in terms of how you make shadow submissions. One is that you include an issue in a broad civil society coalition report that is going to cover many human rights issues, and that usually this is a coalition of NGOs and organisations that come together and really map out the whole range of women's rights violations that they see as happening in a country, and it's a collective report. And so I think including some of the issues that are live for us in that process is important and is potentially powerful. But the second option is to submit a separate submission that deals really specifically with women's rights in childbirth issues. And the third option is actually to do both and don't treat them as mutually exclusive. And I think this is what I would urge in this case, because where an issue is new to the committee, it is actually very strategic to raise that issue in more than one submission. And strength is in the numbers in terms of convincing the committee members that it's a problem. So when we're writing a shadow report, what do we need to do? Well, we need to hold the committee's hand and lead them down the garden path. And we also need to step out of our own shoes. So essentially, it's about making this thing that we've written easy for them to read and digest. And it's also about explaining to them why what we're talking about is relevant to them. So we need to be very clear about what our concerns are. And we really need to be very clear about how they violate the rights and the provisions of the CEDAW Treaty. We need to name what rights in the treaty are at stake, name the specific articles of the treaty that we're worried about, and we need to link our concerns to these provisions. We need to be targeted, so the shorter our submission is, the more focused it is, the better. The committee gives a general page limit of about 10 pages, but I think we should aim for even shorter submissions. And we also need to outline clear recommendations and questions. We really need to spoon feed the committee. What questions do we want them to ask the government during the dialogue? What recommendations do we want to make them to make to the government? We need to actually write these things down explicitly and list them in our submission. And basically, I would say, essentially, we need to step back and take ourselves out of our own shoes and put ourselves in the committee members' shoes. So we're dealing with someone, they're a very busy committee member, they only have very little time to read the submission. Maybe they're only reading it before breakfast, before the dialogue. They're a human rights and gender equality expert, but they don't really know about these issues. So we really need to have this perspective in mind when we're structuring and writing our submissions. And then when we've made the submission, what do we do then? Well, the other way we can get something onto the committee's radar is we can go to Geneva. We can show up at the session. But this costs money, it costs time and energy, and it isn't always possible or advisable, but I do think there are powerful ways to conduct advocacy at the sessions in Geneva. Yeah, and I think the colleagues will talk more about it. But basically there is a dialogue with the state. Before the dialogue with the state delegation, the committee will have a formal meeting with NGOs where NGOs and advocates can make presentations. And then also it will have an informal lunch briefing with NGOs and civil society where we can talk in more detail about the issues we want to raise with them. And I would say that being present in Geneva gives a face and it gives a voice to the women we are talking about. And it can be very powerful in terms of getting the committee's attention. I think it's very safe to say, for example, that last year had the survivors of symphysiotomy, had the women from Ireland who had gone through this procedure and whose lives had been shaped by it, not come to the Human Rights Committee, not shook the hands of the members and said hello and told them their personal stories, then the level of gravity that that committee expressed, both in person at the meeting and in its written concluding observations, would not have been there. And I think there is a lot to be said in terms of us as advocates being there, but also in terms of women and survivors of abuse to come and tell their stories. It can be immensely powerful for the committee members. But the reality is that coming to Geneva is not always possible. And I think also it's really critical that what happens in Geneva doesn't stay in Geneva. And this is the really hard part, right? Because the onus is on us, but how do we transcend that bridge and make what this periodic review process in the UN in Geneva, make it relevant to the ground, make it relevant to people's lives, and actually use it as a basis to hold governments accountable. And so how are some of the ways that we can engage with this process, even if we're not in Geneva or after the process has happened? Well, there are a few. So we can use the internet, because now all of committee periodic reviews and dialogues are filmed and live streamed on an open stream, and there is a web archive of all webcasts that everyone can access. And I think this is really quite a small step, but a revolutionary one in terms of really democratizing this process and making it tangible and accessible to people in countries and on the ground. And so, for example, again, and I'm using the Irish example again and again, but I think they've been really successful in terms of how they've used these mechanisms for accountability at home. They organise real-time public viewings of the webcasts, where all of the civil society activists who cannot go to Geneva come together and watch the review, and then they broadcast to the press and on social media about what the government is saying and the committee's findings in real time. Another tool that we can use is the press. So one thing you can do is, if you're having this kind of public viewing, get journalists to come to the public viewing. But it's also possible to think about whether it's actually a good idea, and I think sometimes it often is, to get a journalist that you're friendly with, that's an ally, to come to the hearing in Geneva. Because it's very powerful for journalists to hear firsthand the level of concern and the gravity of the concern that the committee is expressing. So I think that's a very interesting option. And then finally, and I'm going to close now shortly, but think about parliamentarians and friendly ones, because I don't know if there are any politicians in this room, but I find politicians kind of annoying. And one of the reasons they're annoying is that once they get an issue, they keep going with that issue. And I think we need to bring them into our processes in terms of using these human rights mechanisms and see how they can be helpful. Get them to make trouble in the parliamentary context. Get them to ask parliamentary questions before the review, after the review, about what is this government going to do to implement the concluding observations. So that about wraps up what I want to say, and I don't want to duplicate the other colleagues' remarks. I do just want to close with one point, which is that I think very much the possibility of engagement with the committee, which we have, comes with the responsibility to be strategic. And we need to be raising the issues that we are worried about in a way that is strategic and is respectful of the fact that the violations we're talking about are just one aspect of restrictions and violations of women's reproductive freedoms and autonomy that are happening. And that, as Stefania said yesterday, they can't really be seen in the abstract, and they need to be situated in relation to the other sexual and reproductive health and rights issues women are facing. And I also think both to be strategic and respectful of the fact that in many parts of the world and in many of the countries which a committee like CEDAW is dealing with, and indeed in our own countries for marginalised groups of women, the struggle is still at a very basic level, and it is still a fight for basic access to basic maternity care. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Leah, for very practical information that I hope also have encouraged you to try to use that instrument. And we decided to change Katarina Czerwona will be speaking first because in a way, her speech is a continuation of what Leah was saying, so we decided that it will be more helpful and logic in a way to let her speak now. And Katarina is also a lawyer, and she has a background in the NGO that focuses mainly on patients' rights, and she has experience with using CEDAW for advocacy reasons, and she will share that information with you to try to also further encourage you to try to do that as well. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and I don't know where to stand, maybe here. Yes, so thank you very much. As you mentioned, I'm a lawyer, but I don't feel like a lawyer, so don't be afraid. I will not speak very much lawyerish. Just a few months ago, I just realized that in my heart I'm 10 good answers, so don't be afraid. Actually, 5 years ago, I was in Geneva, and there was a success, and the concluding observations were great. And actually, till these days, I didn't realize that it was very much success. And as I see you, it probably was. So now I'm happy that my work as a lawyer, when I used to be a lawyer, was successful. But I wanted to, by my speech, I wanted to encourage you to go to CEDAW. It's easy. It's easy. You don't need to be a lawyer, and go for it. So, yeah, this is the CEDAW. Yeah, but I just wanted to show you our success first, because at the recommendation. Was mentioned that Czech Republic should adopt a protocol of normal birth, that everything should be with the informed consent, that there should be monitor of the quality of the care. We didn't even ask for it, and they mentioned it, great. And that there should be mandatory training for doctors or everyone. There should be awareness raising, and what more, that the Czech Republic should make a midwife assistant childbirth outside the hospital a safe option for the woman and legal option for the woman. So everything they stated, and it was great. And so how we managed to, how we persuade them. So this is actually the CEDAW. It may look horrified, but actually it's not for NGO. This is the member countries, like the governmental officers, and this is actually scary for them. So this is the members of the committee, and we are sitting somewhere here and just watching and like hoping that they will ask the proper question, because the thing is that as an NGO, you need to persuade members to ask the right questions to the government. Because if they don't ask the questions, then they can't write anything in the observation. So once you know that they ask the questions, something related to your topic, then you have the possibility that they will write something. If they don't, they can't write anything, because, yeah, well. So your task is to persuade these people, these mainly women, to ask the right questions. So how to do that? Yeah. Well, the most important thing, and my biggest advice to you, contact the IRO Asia Pacific. This is the NGO which specializes on helping other NGOs to go to CEDAW. They even paid me for going to Geneva. They provide the teaching, the lectures for me how to lobby. And they really helped me all the week I was there, and they helped me with everything. So if you are thinking about contacting the CEDAW, well, contact IRO Asia Pacific. It's not the IRO, it's IRO Asia Pacific. They are somehow very, well, it's other organization, and they didn't want to speak about that somehow. Yeah, so it's IRO Asia Pacific, and probably there is a way how they can help you. At least they can advise you, and this was really great help from them. So, and what they taught me? You need to be concise, very short, because as I told you, well, as Leah mentioned, at they have a week session, and in that week they heard, I don't know, four countries, let's say 4 countries, and then the first day they formally listen to NGOs. So this was my first time I was speaking in UN, and it was wow. Well, I have exactly 2 minutes. But the IRO Asia Pacific told me that I will have 2 minutes, so I really had an opportunity to prepare myself, and that was it. So I need to, but this was actually not so important. because there were other ways how to speak with the members, and these were more important. But be concise, be very short. Even if you write the shadow reports, be short. And if you go to Geneva and you will speak with the members, you need to have some paper, and you have one page. Don't have more. Well, they have a session for 3 weeks, they have 15 countries, they have hundreds NGO, they don't have a time to read more, so be short. And a smile. So, make your friends. What was another thing behind our success? That there was another NGO from Czech Republic, and we really supported each other, and they really supported our topic, and so we kind of made a coalition, and it's always good to have this coalition, because at the formal session, when you have these 10 minutes for each country, you need to separate these 2 minutes, and you need to separate these two topics, and it's not worthy if you speak about the same thing, if you can divide your time into relevant topics. So make your friends, make your coalition with other NGO. Easy, huh? Okay, speak with the members. They are eager to hear it, although they are kind of sometimes very sleepy, and they have very tired, because actually I don't even know, I think they are not paid for that somehow, so it's just more or less they voluntarily work, and it's in Geneva, and it's beautiful weather there and beautiful place, so you need to catch them. And how to catch them. It's not so difficult, actually. You have the paper, you have the short paper, 1 page for the one issue. There is and in the short page, you need to write exactly what you want. I mean, be precise as much as possible. And then you can have a success. And you need to have the strong arguments, but I will get into it. So catch them, how to catch them, yes. There are, during the day there is a session, and you can catch them when they are entering the room, and when they are leaving the room, in the breaks. I'm serious, really, this is how we do it. It's very good to have your team members, some colleagues, because then you can catch more members. Yeah. Well, yes. So you catch them and you speak them, you try to explain. Don't be afraid that you don't speak English very much. It was, well, now I'm really good in English. When 5 years ago I was like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, somehow they listened. I had other colleagues who helped me when I wasn't able to speak, etc. So, sorry? Well, yeah. Sometimes they don't speak English, but so yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So the breaks are crucial. You need to use it. Don't be afraid. Just like you see some member and go and speak with them. Like force her to take your paper and tell her that you are eager to answer all the questions during through the email, whatever they want. Promise them everything. So, what do you think? Well, this is really powerful, and they need to eat, and there is a lunch. Usually the NGO and the IRO helps with organizing that. This is the lunch for the members. And you need to invite them, and they will come and listen to you. And actually, it doesn't usually look like that. You just buy the sandwiches and the water, and then, as I told you, you need to catch them, because they are tired and they really want to break, but you don't let them. And one my colleague she was in another UN committee, and she told me, we were two. So I was standing at the front door and they were leaving. I catch them, and just because they were trying to avoid me, but I didn't let them. And right at the end, yes, and there was another colleague in the table where was the sandwiches, because they wanted to take it and leave away, and led her to the table. So I'm do it like that, and maybe it's easy, and then they will listen. And if you want to be nice to her, you will buy them something nice. Yes, so feed them. So feed them. And the lunch. Look, I can see some lunch. There is no food there, but it looks something like that. There is and this is the committee member. I remember some of them. I think this is the ladies from the IRA Asia Pacific. They just listen. These are the NGO members, and you do not eat. You just talk, and try to persuade them that your topic is relevant. So, and what is very important thing? You need to know your committee, or it's good if you know them, because you want to know who to catch. Yeah, because there is I don't know, when I was there was like maybe 18 members, and you are alone, and you are two, and you have like 3 breaks or 4 breaks. So in a break you catch the 2 people. So you need to know who is strategic to strategy for you, because you know that every person has his priority, and I know that the one lady is really interested in the housing of the women, and she doesn't care about anything else because she needs to write some reports. So I will not focus on her. Well, when she comes to lunch, that's fine, but I will not lose my time for that. So, and it's. But it's of course time consuming to find about every other person who is a member. So IRA Asia Pacific really helped me with that. Even I looked at the page yesterday, and they have a list of the members. Even this is the one member from Croatia, Dubravka Šimonović. I don't know much about her, but you can write a lot about her. And IRA Asia Pacific and provide me the list where was the name, and what was more important, the picture, because they don't use these. So when you see the woman, you don't know which one it is, and so they provide the picture and show me. You go to her, you know. This is the strategy for you. And there was also written a bit about, you know, she's interested in that topic and that topic. So. This was very useful. So know your committee, like members, and what you need to know about the committee. I wanted to stress one thing, because as Leah told us, there were only 3 cases about the childbirth in the committee history, and you know, I think this is because of one reason. Because we are from Europe, and although we are complaining, we have a very good situation actually, in some way, because what the committee members are from Africa and Asia, I don't know from where, and what they are mainly concerned of they struggle for the medical care. So they don't really understand why we struggle for non-medical care. It's not like they don't understand it. So that's the reason. That's the thing you need to focus on. So you need to understand that somehow, you know, they struggle for something completely different than you. So you need to really carefully. You need to understand that and then work with that. So how to do that? Yeah. So, and even though I told you lots of tips how to do that, so I think that behind our success wasn't my diplomacy. Well, I'm not very happy to say that it wasn't really my success, but what I think it was the non-diplomacy of the governmental officials of Czech Republic. So that they really upset the CEDAW. You know, there was the session, it's called constructive dialogue. So it means that the government, like governmental officials talk, let's say 3 hours or 4 hours in a row, and you think that everything is perfect in the Czech Republic and nothing really need to be changed and everything is perfect. And then the committee members just ask the questions. And then this is your time, and you wait like 2 hours if the right questions it's happening or not. And it was really sad to me because I was like week in Geneva, and then the asking a question was finishing, and I was like, oh my God, no, nothing will happen. And then one woman asked the question, hey, you know what? I heard that some women doesn't want to give a birth in a hospital because they are afraid. You know, it was like last question in the session, and she just posed this simple question. I was like, oh my God, such a relief. And what was like even bigger, my bigger surprise when I saw the governmental officials, really, they didn't have any diplomatic school, or I don't know. She just said, okay, you know what? 99% of the women give birth in the hospital. No one's want to give a birth outside the hospital. No one is afraid. And she was like so arrogant. It's really upset the city. So, and you could see that the members of the committee, they was like sleeping already. I'm like, what? And that was behind the success of, because. So, and then they started to ask the right question. I was like, oh my God, like, great. So, you need to, I'm getting to the point that you need to write the good argument to the committee. Maybe you will talk about the cesarean section. This is exactly great argument. And somehow you need to talk about the violence. Maybe you need to tell them that the women are afraid, or I don't know, something like that. Yeah. So you just believe that some member of the government will upset your CEDAW committee. Don't do that. Yeah, don't do that to you. So and then they will. Write, hopefully, the concluding observation, and even they ask the question, your topic, it's not necessary to be in the concluding observation, but you will hope that in the month they will release the concluding observation with your topic and with the right documentation as it happened to us. Then, go to media. That's what we actually do even after right in the day of the Geneva. I was calling with our PR manager, and I was just explaining her everything, and we wrote a press release which had a funny ending because it was our, I think, one or first or maybe the only one, I don't know, the press release where the Ministry of Health Care the other day issued that it's not right. They issued another press release, and they said, oh, we are lying, everything was something else. So it was really good for media. Yeah, but what to do then? Because then you have the recommendation, and what? And that's, I'm a bit sad about that, because we are lawyers, so I asked my colleague who really deals with that issue in the law basis, and she told me, well, Susanna told me, well, we give the information about the CEDAW in every appeal, in every file to the court, etc. And at Czech level, no one really cares. It's sad, but it's like that. So it's very difficult, and I've heard from other NGOs who were in Geneva that in their country they are really afraid of CEDAW. But somehow in Czech Republic, it looks like no one is really afraid of anything. So, but I was really glad that after all, it has some good thing. It ended because the concluding observation appeared in the Dubska case. Even if we, the case Zuzana was talking about in the during the morning, even if we lost the case, they put it into the judgment, and somehow they put the arguments into the judgment, and even the Judge Lemons, who gave the dissent opinion, he mentioned the CEDAW in his dissent, and I was like, oh, finally, that's good. Yeah, so it can happen. So use it if you can. And yeah, that's what I actually did said. And I wanted to end with the last remark, and I'm not one to speak only about the CEDAW, but I wanted to speak about the activists in other areas and in your other activities, and I wanted to encourage you, because I think it has a sense. You think that you're working like week after week and month after month, and then year after year, and you don't see the changes, maybe, but from the higher perspective you will see that. Because my real topic is the forced sterilization. I really deal with the forced unlawful sterilization. I represented some women and Roma women who were sterilized and did a lot of advocacy, etc. And our organization deal with the topic. I think this year it will be 10 years, and I want to end with that change happened. You know, the sterilization are not happen anymore in Czech Republic, and this is because NGO was really dealing with that. And you know what, we did everything in the sterilization topic. We went in every UN body you can imagine. Every UN body did concluding observation, then we need to stop it and we need to compensate the woman. They didn't listen, but somehow year after year now we are in the stage that women are not sterilized anymore. We have a new law, we have government, let's say, apologize, and now hopefully we are in the first stage, and probably we will be in this stage like many years, but we are in the first stage of preparing a new law for the compensation of the woman. So I just want to say that changes are happening, and so I just want to encourage you, go for it, you can do it. So it was very nice, and I'm not sure if you want to hear the conclusion. So just contact Asia Pacific, be sure, speak with the committee, feed them, and file the individual complaint. I forgot to mention it. It's possible to go to CEDAW and file the individual complaint. You can take a client and go to CEDAW, and actually we are going right now. We are preparing the complaint with the sterilization, and I think it could be a good way also to do it in your cases, in the birth rights. And you know, the committee came to me and said, you know what, file the complaint. The members came to me and file a complaint. It's really easy. It's like few pages. You don't need to really write much. We will deal with it. You know what? So just it's easy. So go for it, and I think you will have the results. So thank you.
Thank you, Katerina, for this very inspirational and I hope encouraging speech. And if I can add to that, it really feels great when you actually hear the CEDAW members speaking your words to your government and then putting that in concluding observations. It really is a great award. But also, I would like to repeat after Katerina to remember about the follow-up after the session and to actually hold the government accountable for what they should do based on the CEDAW, the concluding observations. And now we are moving to another wonderful lawyer that's here with us from Greece, Electra Leda Kutra, who has a lot of experience with representing women in individual cases before the court in Strasbourg, but also through CEDAW committee, and that will be an occasion for her to give us a better perspective on what's going on in Greece, also in terms of reproductive rights.
Thank you. Do I open it? Hi. Open? Now it is. Okay. So, hi. My name is Electra Kutra. I am a mom who has managed to give birth, who has succeeded to give birth naturally in a country with the highest cesarean section rates globally and unnecessary interventions rates globally. At the point where I gave birth, they were more than 60% in national maternity wards, 80% in private maternity wards, and in some areas reaching 90%. The state and the situation was telling us that 9 out of 10 women could not meet their power at this crucial phase of their lives. So this is one aspect of mine, but it is one that has brought me here before you, because I came across all the violations of that phase concerning birth rights in my country. I'm also a lawyer. I was telling them at the hospital all the time, you know, that I don't know if I would have made it if I wasn't a lawyer. I was telling them, you know, that I'm not gonna, you know, I don't pay for a lawyer. and my brows were like that from too much oxytocin. So yes, I was wild. So I did it, and there was a big, because I had broken my leg when I entered the 9th month, and I was very fat, you know, in immobility, so, and I went to the hospital. I wanted to give birth at home, but they wouldn't let me after 3 days of labor. So I was already defeated to go to the hospital like that, and then they wanted to cut me and do all these crazy things to me, and I was like, no, I will sue you now. Call the DA. So I made it to have a big boy. Yes, the child was too big, as usual in Greece. So I managed to have a big boy and not get cut, not get torn, nothing. So and leave the next day. So a few hours later. So again, you know, in confrontation. So that was difficult. I hadn't planned to say that. So okay. Okay, I'm also a lawyer, and that was very nice what happened before. It was, you both were amazing in your own way. It's one of them. So this is, something happened to me yesterday. I felt all this amazing energy in this room, and there also came the realization that there are wonderful and dynamic activists and persons from 25 different countries who know what they're talking about, who have a clue on birth rights, who sense that there is something they must do about it. So I erased my speech. And I hope you are patient with me. And first of all, Elena, who almost had a stroke when I told her 5 minutes before I stand up here that, you know, I don't have my speech anymore. Other things are more important, you know. Poor woman. We must make her a statue or something after it ends. So, yes, and I realized that what is important about my speaking to you here is not how I put, which is not accurate, I did not put, I found a way that my country is put in UN monitor by the CEDAW, and it was actually one good case because it said reduce the cesarean section rates and produce specific results and come back in 2 years and give us your report and come back in 4 years and give us your report. And if you don't have it fixed by then it's ongoing and you're already exposed, you're going to be exposed again and again and again until you fix it. So this is a powerful tool actually. But the most important thing I have to share with you, because I'm not that experienced, well, I am experienced, I am an experienced human rights lawyer. Some would say I'm too experienced. But, and I have worked with various UN bodies and committees and rapporteurs and working groups, but not the CEDAW. How the CEDAW was, how my country was, is still being monitored since 2013 and will be for another 2 years or until it conforms to its obligations stemming from the convention, happened by chance. And this is the most, I was not experienced at all with the CEDAW. I had not met with the members of the committee. I had not, while with other UN committees, we have regular contacts. And I'm called whenever they come to Greece to consult with me and all that. Never with the CEDAW. At some point, a few days before a colleague, Panagiotis Dimitras, the head of the Greek Helsinki Monitor, with whom I closely cooperate as a lawyer of the GHM in several strategic cases, was going to present other things to the CEDAW. And I literally begged him to put inside the issue of the cesarean sections, and he did. And we got these results. And it was, I could say, because the committee got really upset. This blowing, because when the Greek representation, the representation of the Greek government answered that doctors know what they're doing, and they freaked out with 70%, you know, 7 out of 10 women being cut in a country, and having the World Health Organization's maximum rate of cesarean sections. So what I did actually, and what is important that what I want you to take with you from my presence here after the two experts on the CEDAW is that I wasn't, that I just stated the facts in a good way, I was concise, as was said to you. I documented what I was saying with the statistical service, as I should have, and found the way, someone to get it there. I could have done it too. It's not, and you could have done it too, but it's done now, and the country is being held accountable for that. So the important thing is that you can also do it. And I want to see among you who thinks that they can go home tomorrow and start doing this. I want to see your hands raised. Who thinks that who thinks they can do it? Okay. So the hands are very few, and we're trying to. We will. Well, change and social change is not something else does. Yes. So it's okay. If they don't feel like they can do it, they must be honest because they won't do it. It's better to know that they won't do it so that we do something for them to do it. So, okay. So, what I did last night, I said, okay, I won't talk to them. I will give them exactly the steps they need, 10 steps, to do this tomorrow. To start with this as soon as you get home, to be passionate about this and say, I'm going to put my country in monitoring now. From now on, I'm preparing it now. See, so, you put CEDAW in the Google, and it brings you here. You press, no, I want to start with Google. You know, I'm a participant, I go home.
I'm sorry, just one quick note regarding that. It is not the first, it's not, there's an old CEDAW website, and there's a new one. So make sure it says OHCHR. You don't want the old website. So it's not the first result you will get on Google.
I think so. Okay. And I also want my blog, because I had a blog entry last night at 3 o'clock because I was very enthusiastic that you learn how to do this, you learn everything before you go home. Ah, perfect, okay. So, this is the site. You may not even have the address. You put CEDAW and it comes out. The first thing you have to do after deciding that you will not let the country get away with it is to find where your country is being up next. When is it examined next? So you go here to sessions. You press. And you see where the mouse is, yes? And you go these are the sessions. Sit down. It is right. It may have a drop down. I remember a drop down menu saying which convention. You put CEDAW if I don't. Maybe it has changed the site. Okay. So you see when it's next. We have France here. Who is from France? You're from France. 4 July 2016, Miss. Czech Republic, 15 February 2016. Who else is next? Russia, Slovakia? Slovenia? Great. You're both on 20 November. So you all have time even for the pre-session. There is plenty of time to do this. And then, it has passed?
Yes, for Slovenia and Slovakia.
Ah, for Slovenia and Slovakia. Yes, but anyway, don't put them difficult. Okay, you'll do it normally. So you check when you're next. If you see here your country, you raise the hand and you say I'm then. No, you'll know about everything now. Wait, we'll tell. This is the point in this. So, okay. So, this is my today's entry. This is why I haven't slept. So, but this is interesting, and I really, really want you to try it. Those of you who are on. So, you check when your country's next report is due. You create your time schedule. Most of you, most of you are already involved with NGOs, either volunteering with NGOs or even working for NGOs, either human rights NGOs or birth campaigns that have some legal personality. So this is good. If you assure them that you will do all the work and that you know how to do all the work and that they have nothing to do with this, and that they will just give you their umbrella. If you don't want them, or if they don't want you, or if you don't trust them, make an NGO. It's not difficult. In most countries, it's kind of easy. Then you put your NGO's profile to the UN's Department of Economic and Social Affairs. It is a registration, actually. It sounds very, UN. But it is a registration, like you put your scope, your activities, the fields that interest you, the name of the NGO, the title, the address, who is the spokesperson, and you send them the information. It is online, and I have the link here. You can all visit for birth blogspot. It's a blog that we use for birth issues in the NGO I'm leading. So you put the profile there so that it is, and it's nice. You have no obligation. You just start getting nice emails informing you on what's going on with the UN. It's beautiful, and you're registered. Okay, then if you're close to a session, this you may not follow. It would be the most smart advice is to contact the organization. It is an NGO, the one my colleague told you about, so that you get it, because this is their job to help you. This is their scope to help you. And they will be happy to, and you will be even happier that they are there. So let them help. The only thing you have to do is locate the problem and decide that you are going to do something about it, and document in a concise way. What I would do is then send an email to the Secretariat. In the second blog post, there are two. I have all the addresses and the emails and the telephones and everything. You send an email to the Secretariat after you have registered your organization. You send an email and you say that I want to be a stakeholder in my country. I want to inform you on issues having to do with my birth rights. Whenever you come, maybe if there's too many organizations, maybe they will even send a fact-finding mission, or they will send a working group on a mission according to their mandate. They can have various, if I'm not mistaken, experts. If I am mistaken, you say so now, before we leave.
I think the committees won't go to the countries so much.
The working groups?
It's the working groups, yes, and the special procedures.
Yes. So there is a wonderful working group on rural areas, and it would be smart to initiate to the CEDAW, if those of you who are in NGOs working with vulnerable, with marginalized groups, it would be smart to combine it. It will be more catchy. But now we're talking about, how to get you how to bring the CEDAW closer to you, and how to get yourselves closer to the CEDAW, because it is not something far. It is this legislation, not law, this convention is applicable on all subjects in all countries. It is your instrument. It is your right. The committee needs you. Actually, they have an open call for you, for civil society. They need documentation. They need information from national stakeholders. So become a stakeholder. And this will also feed back on your work in your country, because you're going to be the one busying as a mosquito. They know that if they piss you off, you have means, and you have a voice that it goes beyond the borders of the country. So you inform the committee, the Secretariat, that you want to be included. They have a catalogue. If the working group, this is from my experience with other UN bodies, but I have the feeling that this will not be any different in the CEDAW, committee and work. You name your country, you name your expertise or the scope of your NGO, and you ask them to include you. You keep contact with them. Something happens. You create a reciprocal relationship. This is what I do. with other UN organs, with other UN bodies. You keep contact with and you keep yourself very short. Everybody told you that, so if you hear it 3 times, it must mean something to you. They're very, very busy, and they won't look at it if it's large, and if they see adjectives, let's say, for example, this horrible, despicable practice, never. The practice should go without any adjective. Just the facts. You must build a profile that relates to credibility. Only facts. No exaggeration. Never. It's better to say less or to make less of the situation than more of the situation. If you cannot take this, if the NGO does not have the means to support you with experts, you must make the work yourself. You must at least know what the problem is, and you must make sure that you make everyone else know in a few words what the problem is, and also optimally propose in a few sentences also how to solve it. Even if it is a proposal for a legislation, be sure to, if you're not lawyers, I won't say that, okay, but make sure you have in mind what you propose to be done and you state it out. Okay, the fact, in my opinion, the fact, documenting the facts is really, really important, and documenting it in a value-free and in a very concise and short way. This is more than half of the work. I invite you to visit that so that I don't read it. I never like reading and speaking. It's not nice. So how you submit it, you get the help, and you visit the blog for the exact addresses. I have it. You can do it after if you have an internet connection. You can have it right away. It's for Birth Blogspot, and okay. Another thing is that to see those of you who have their country examined 2 years ago, will have a report of the country in the middle of that period. Make sure that you check when the reports are on, and make sure that you check the deadlines, because I think it is 1 month to provide, yes, so that you follow up with that report and expose the government, because usually governments lie. They go there and say all crazy things, that everything's perfect, as we heard. It is not. It is a common practice. They are not accurate. So if you don't do that, if you are not in a position to pinpoint which are the inaccurate parts of the government's submissions and reports on what they're doing, as a follow-up of the committee's suggestions, then it is your job to do that. And you will feel that it is your job to do it better if you do what I say right away. You go home and you do it. You put the NGO there, you send a letter to the Secretariat, and they will answer. And then after you put your information in the UN registry, you will get, in 48 hours, you will get, maybe even maximum a week, you will get a reply with your password, with your login information, and you will have a closer relationship with UN's, what happens on UN level. You're a stakeholder already, okay? So, if each and every one of you take it personally, the situation of birth rights in 25 countries will change. And this is for sure. I did it without knowing the CEDAW. Like, okay, I had some experience, but okay? If I could, you can. I haven't met with them. I haven't seen them. I haven't went to Geneva for CEDAW. I haven't had any clue. I just sensed that this was unfair and that this convention protects me, protects this field of rights. So it will be a shame if you don't do it. It's easy, and it will be a great boost for your ego to say in the next conference, to be here and say, I did it. I put my country to monitoring, and now they have to explain themselves, and we brought accountability, and now they have to say all these things, and they lie, and I go up and I expose them, and they will, sooner or later, have to fix it, because with these monitoring mechanisms, it goes again and again and again until it's fixed. At some point, they will get bored being exposed internationally, so they will fix it. And this will mean an amelioration in the levels of respect for women's rights, and actually it's going to be a tangible difference in the next generation, babies that are born now. And in 25 countries, if you do so, will not have the same fate like in Greece, cut and everything. So, and have happier moms, which is very crucial as well, and moms who know how strong they are. So, I'm very interested in those of you who still think that they cannot do it, to raise their hands. Who cannot do it? Who doesn't want to do it? All of you, you're going to make me cry. Okay, you can do it. Okay. So this is very, very, very moving, and I'm really honored to be here with you. And I hope the next time you can always send me an email, but I'm sure Elena will help, and I'm sure everyone will be with you on that quest, as sure as you find the daring part in you that wants to do that, that is capable and dynamic and capable of doing it. It is that simple. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a really pleasure to moderate such a powerful and encouraging panel. And if I can close with one remark from my personal perspective, if you ever doubt what you can do and what you cannot do, please remind yourself my personal story. It took you an hour in The Hague to change me from a person who wanted a cesarean section on demand, way before she even planned to get pregnant, to a woman who got back from The Hague and told her partner, you know, if I ever give birth, it's going to be here with the tub, with water, and with doula. And you should have seen the look on his face, but I haven't changed my mind since then. So that's the real power that you have. And if you can do it in an hour, I cannot even imagine what you can do in a year. So good luck with everything that you do. And it's been a pleasure to moderate this for me, and giving the floor to Elena, because I know we're really running out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say a few things. I think that you have seen that you can do it at the last minute, like a lecturer, or you can use the full resources that NGOs provide to do that kind of advocacy. And I want to tell to you and the people streaming as well that I would personally support you in those efforts. So if you're doubting, and I'm sure that other attorneys would too, so if you're doubting yourself and you think that you don't have the strength to do that, just send me an email, Nicola. HRIC in general, yeah. Just send us an email. If you're a midwife or a doctor or an academic and you don't represent an NGO, you can still be involved. Connect with us and we will let you know how you can contribute. I think it's important for everybody to be involved in that process. And I think the coffee is getting cold. We would take 30 minutes so we can set up the room a little bit differently. We would have 2 workshops, and we're trying to separate the space so we can actually work in separate groups. One would be specifically for lawyers and for attorneys to work on litigation strategies, and the other workshop would be for advocates, and this means really all of us, to work on a regional strategy. And unfortunately, I want to say for people that are watching us live that we would not be streaming that portion, but if you're interested, we can let you know what came out of those sessions. Thank you.